everybody? It is your host, clan founder, Perk here, along with WillProduces. And we are from the Caffeinds clan. We are a clan of Destiny founded in the early alpha days and have retained an immense passion for not just the game itself, but the community that we've built within our clan. And it seems like every time we get together for a raid night or just to do powerful engrams or what have you, it ends up feeling like a podcast. So we decided, why not make it a podcast? This podcast is going to feature us as well as a number of different members of our clan rotating in, sharing thoughts and history and experience with Destiny. So we wanted to start it off today with the two of us.
That's right, guys. It's great to actually be out here talking to you and finally get some content out for the clan because it's been a long time coming and we've been toying with this idea, but we decided to say it's time to start it up. Now, before we get into the meat of the broadcast, we have to pay the bills here. So we've got our show's very first sponsor. Guys, this show is brought to you by Uncle Drifter's Umbral Engrams. You run into some hive but forget to bring a sword? Did you drop by Uncle Drifter's Umbral Engram Decryptor in the annex today? Use code Caffeinds, that's Caffeinds at decryption for 10% off your item's power level. Uncle Drifter's Umbral Engrams. They are all right.
We do have another sponsor.
We do?
We do.
What's that?
We have Gary's Almighty Sunset Proof Shader. Are you dreading the day when you won't be able to infuse up your Recluse? Is your mountaintop misfiring at the very thought of getting sharded? Guardians, we've got the solution for you. With Gary's Almighty Sunset Proof Shader, you can channel the power of the Almighty into your guns. The sun will literally never set on your favorite gear or else. Get your shader today and let everyone know it's your light and you want it now.
Man, I had so much fun writing those. So before we jump into the actual content, we gotta live up to our name here. Let's cheers the coffee. I'm at the end of my cup, but
cheers. I'm gonna go this
way.
Cheers,
my friend.
Cheers in the middle. Think. We got the same ball jar. We vibing that right now?
Oh man, I feel like a big ass hipster right now.
Sick.
So the first thing we're talking about is the huge ass reveal of Beyond Light during the was that the GCX stream that Bungie did, or was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the GCX stream for Guardian Con raised a bunch of money for St. Jude, if I'm not
big money.
Yeah, huge monies, and they dropped tons of info about the next 3 years of Destiny 2.
Yeah. It actually we got more info on Guardian Con. That followed the Bungie reveal, which was the Tuesday prior.
Right, yeah.
Or it was the Saturday prior. It was a Saturday. It was a weird day. That's right. I remember.
Time's a flat circle, Perk. It has no meaning in the times of coronavirus. We're all stuck at home and hardly see the sun. These lights that I have on right now are the only light that I've actually felt on my skin in I don't know how long.
You feel light? I'm just in the dark.
Yep.
I don't know. That's me. But anyway.
Yes. So huge things to talk about. First things first. We're going to Europa. Europa has been teased since the very beginning of even before D1 came out.
It was the concept art for the original game.
Hell yeah, it was I should have pulled this, but it was the huge ass iceberg with the cargo ship in it, and now we're seeing the first elements of those in game. We're seeing Drifter and the Exo Stranger and Eris being drawn together to an icy planet. I'm actually gonna go ahead and throw up
it's a cool little. I wanted to bring this up too because this interested me so much. When Destiny first started, the center point was you as the Guardian mixed with the trio of vanguards of Zavala, Ikora, and Cade. We obviously saw Cade's story. We saw the introduction in Destiny 2 of Hawthorne doing the whole clan engrams and stuff like that. And she's not a Guardian, but bringing that stuff together. But then we saw the Drifter as well. And I love the fact that they're using Eris, which is a character that everybody used to meme about in the D1 days, finally giving her stuff to do that she's integral to the plot, which begged the question back when you're like, wait, she has hive eyes? Like, how does that work? You got the Drifter, who was always up to no good, and then we're finally getting to talk to the Stranger again, and hearing what her role in this whole thing is,
Yeah,
which is awesome.
hopefully she'll have time to explain
I
that
think
she
she,
has
I
time to
think,
explain.
and
I think
just this whole image is awesome because it seems so foreign to where we are kind of accustomed to playing Destiny, but I think in the best way. Like, they're out in the remote of the ice. Like, Eris is doing like some hive magic and stuff, and you have the Stranger rushing to get there. The Drifter showing up, not sure if he's gonna have to have a gunfight with Eris. Like, he has his hand on his gun. Like, what's going on? Like, it seems to be that this trio of characters is finally going to have an interesting, kind of offbeat and out in the wilderness story for Destiny, and that by itself is just so exciting. Because honestly, I don't know about you, I'm tired of the Vanguard. Like, they don't take enough action. They don't let us play after dark. Like, this stuff is so exciting because
yeah.
it's just stuff happening. Stuff's happening whether they wanted it or not.
So this
Pun intended.
they want, yeah. So this, first of all, we have to talk about this guy on screen. The only thing we know is that that's not a ghost, according to Luke Smith. But this could very well be a darkness Vanguard. You know, everything works in threes and Bungie's stuff, but I'm not sure if we know really anyone's classes other than Eris, and even that's sort of like up for debate.
Ambiguous. Yeah, because she went in with the fire team and stuff. I think the interesting thing too is I'm just excited to see whatever. Like, the Vanguard is there, the tower has been there. It's been kind of a dry topic, even with the destruction of the original tower,
right,
during the Red War campaign. It's finally like we get to see some exciting shit. Like, it's awesome.
And we're definitely going to see sort of what's happening with Eris's rock. If you remember back to the end of Shadowkeep, the cinematic where she touches the statue of the Veiled Woman, her rock is taken over by a particle effect, and I think we're finding out that particle effect is actually the brand new element Stasis that's going to be coming to the game. It's an icy based element. You know, previously we've had Cold Heart, but Cold Heart was an arc based weapon. This is going to be the first brand new element brought into the game since Destiny 1, which is a huge freaking deal. It totally upends the sort of trinity of how elements work in this game, but it also means that we're getting subclasses for a brand new element.
Mm-hmm. My thought too about the Stasis subclass is they've said that it's going to be its own subclass. They've said that they're breaking away from the typical method of, hey, do you want Void, Solar, or Arc? Okay, then if you have Void, Solar, or Arc, you get to choose one of 3 different clusters. Like, amidst those clusters, generally, I mean, like, there are some subclasses that are great, like the Top Tree Warlock has a lot of good utility, and that's been after patches and stuff like that. But I gotta say, I mean, like, there's some classes that I play, like when I play a Bubble Titan, I really don't like the other attributes in that cluster aren't very fun. So they have confirmed that this new subclass is going to function differently. And for those of you who remember Destiny 1 and the way that subclasses worked, Bungie has mentioned that they're going to be a lot more versatile and letting the player have a little more control over how they kind of custom tweak the subclasses. In D1, you would have multiple different trees. So even if you were a Void Titan, you got to pick, do what kind of grenade I want, what kind of overshield I want with my melee ability, what kind of other stats and different abilities do you want to spec into. You weren't kind of forced into the clusters. And as much as I understand the reason for the clusters, it becomes probably easier to balance without one being overpowered. Generally, I think that being that they want to lean more into calling this game an MMO, I think the more RPG elements you have, the more custom classes you can allow for, ultimately makes the game a lot more interesting, a lot more fun.
Yeah, I agreed entirely. I think something that's really interesting is that now we have this precedent of just down to their core, the darkness subclasses and the subclasses of the light that we've had in the past are gonna just fundamentally work differently,
Yeah.
like all the way through. And they may have a system in place where they're going to step through the subclasses and sort of catch them up to some sort of different customization area, but like having like a firm delineation, like when you're using the darkness, things are so different and you have to think differently as a guardian. Like that's just really freaking cool to me.
It's dope. My thing too is this is an interesting point. Is the third expansion is called Lightfall, right?
We're gonna get to that,
So
man. We're gonna get to that.
whether I don't know, I'm just saying, but I, like it pertains to this. It pertains to this
Right.
because we're using the darkness for the first
Mhm.
time here. If Lightfall ends up being a thing where we don't use the light anymore, are we then going to rely entirely on the darkness for powers? Like how? Like
Mm,
it's an interesting implication of where we're going. Also, one thing that nobody's really talked about that I thought of is what if there's a stasis ability that lets us use it in conjunction with the other elements? Like,
ooh,
what if we don't have to just go purely like, hi, I'm stasis person today. Like my guardian is a stasis guardian. What if you do get to eventually, what if that customization of subclass spills over into the other elements?
that's so
What if you
interesting.
can kind of like your artifact where you need to commit to a certain amount of points in an artifact before you can get pages over and then get like the later perk tree, like overflowing darkness. I forget the exact name of it.
Mhm.
The void suppression. Like maybe to kind of you have to commit a certain amount of points to stasis in order to get some other perk and things
That
from
would
it.
be mad cool. Yeah, like
That'd be
I am. It's almost a cliche for me at this point to reference Guild Wars, but Guild Wars One back in the day, once you hit a certain level, you would be able to multi-class. So, like, if you started out as a warrior, you would then be able to like spec into like you could change a secondary class. So, like, oh, I want monk skills so I can heal myself while I'm hitting people with a hammer, or I want like ranger skills so I can use bows and stuff. Um, that was a really interesting and unique feature of that game, and that like what you just said gave me just like old school Guild Wars One nostalgia chills. Um,
right.
but that'd be so cool. But then you'd also have some weird like Kirby esque mixing of like, okay, if I'm solar on the light side, and then I'm stasis on the dark side. Am I water now? like,
I
did
think
it?
it would be fun. Like I think it would be fun either way. Just let us have more RPG elements.
Yeah.
I'm
Uh,
all for any of that stuff.
Can't wait for that. And also, I think that the game is really trending towards having subclasses that are super unique in like one or more aspects, and then building around it. So like obviously top tree solar for Warlock is a huge thing, but can you actually list what's special about the other Void Titan
Nope.
subclasses other than Bubble?
I'm main Titan, and I couldn't name you what that is. I know that bottom tree has the shoulder charge. Middle tree has one of my favorite super attributes that they totally like took out of the game or nerfed into oblivion, which was that the middle tree sentinel was you held up the shield to where when outgoing damage was increased for your team and incoming damage was reduced, and there was a an exotic set of gloves that amplified the effect and stuff like that. So you literally were like a true tank for a minute. You were holding block, like it was a thing. Like their role was
Mhm.
there, and it was for a brief moment
It
it
was
was
glorious.
worth having the Titan not participate in a DPS phase in order to amplify the rest of the team and defend the team. But we've also never really needed. There's always been DPS times,
Right.
in Destiny. We've never had to do a traditional like MMO RPG element where it's like, hey, we need to get aggro and block, which has
Yeah.
always been a little bit weird. And it feels like they intended the Titan to be in that kind of way, but then never really figured out how to add that or implement that into the game. It was like, pop bubble with blessing and pop a bubble with weapons, and we'll just dip out with our buffs and douse the enemy.
Yeah, I think like obviously like Luke Smith is constantly alluding to WoW, and that's where like, I've done
Yeah.
a lot of raiding and stuff, and there's that holy trinity of roles like healer, DPS, and tank, and when you have something in Destiny right now that like allows you to tank, it's amazing. However, it was one subclass in one class. Like there was nothing for Warlock or for Hunter to really throw on to use that role. I guess you could like maybe say like
Warlock well.
Warlock well, but then that's also
That's
also
sword in the
support.
ground.
But then also like avoid lock. Like if there was a period of time where I always want to call them nothing manacles, but they're not nothing manacles. But where you would or controversial holds where you would be able to like charge your nade and be almost invincible. Like that felt like a very interesting thing that's totally gone. But as we're talking about like the specifics of the classes that we have now, let's deep dive in on where we're going with stasis. First up with the Warlock, we see this ice staff get pulled out in the gameplay. The dude just starts sniping with ice energy and stuff. I'm super excited because I really enjoy like traditional fantasy. Like if you ever play like Dragon Age or something and you play like a mage and you have a staff, you're really just like flipping the staff around in the air and shooting lightning bolts and stuff. This is definitely like along those veins. And we're gonna see like Warlocks really tap in to the space magic fantasy a little bit more, which feels great.
Yeah, like I have longed for just having more stuff to do with like the roles. Like just make it different. Like everybody like Destiny has somehow made like an easy choice for players to gravitate to. Like everybody that plays Destiny immediately has like a subclass or just a class in general that they gravitate towards. Whereas a lot of times in RPGs and MMOs, you're kind of like, do I want to be a warrior? Do I want to be a mage? Like, what do I want to do? Like, pretty much, I haven't met anybody that's played Destiny that was just like, I didn't know who I wanted to be. Like, everybody just knew like right away. And I anytime that Bungie wants to give us more RPG like stuff to do as that class, like the hunter using like the arc staff, the Titans using their shields, Warlocks using literally energy. I love the Warlocks using the swords, honestly. That emote is my favorite. And when they changed Sunsinger in from D1 over into D2 with the Dawnblade, I love that Warlocks were just shooting fire swords out of their hands. Like that was amazing. Yeah. Like that was a cool like mage thing to do. And like the fireballs and everything too are just like they feel like spells. Like it feels awesome. So
I would love
for more of that stuff.
Whatever's in the pipeline for Warlock. One of these subclasses just has to be like a giant freaking book that is just like floating in front of you, and you're just like throwing spells, like making it rain spells all over the battlefield.
That was like, Sunsinger. If you could tank up a Sunsinger, you were literally making fireball grenades.
I remember you could throw 11 solar grenades after mid super.
It was absurd.
Yeah.
That you just lit the world on fire. It was amazing. More of that stuff. So I'm super hype for the ice stuff. My other thing too is like I mentioned the other like the possibility for combining them and things like that, which may not be a thing.
Right.
But imagine new enemies that are actually hard to lock down, and you need to use stasis to kind of pin them into a place for the rest of the team to like DPS them in like a brief like precise moment.
I think if we look back at the gameplay reveal, we might see a little bit of that. I have the hunter up. The hunter is using ice picks. There's the frames after this that you see the hunter sort of hurling their ice picks at the ground. It definitely is. Well, first of all, it looks a lot like the Solar Titan hammers. There's definitely AOE. It looks like there's slow for sure. And there's just like a whole like at least 10 seconds of enemies being slowed down, frozen in place, and then exploded. What we don't have pictured, unfortunately, is the Titan stasis subclass, which is apparently Hulk Fists. Or if you're
foam Hulk Fists on Titan's hands.
Titan Smash.
That's all I want. I've wanted that. I have been asking for a punchy super forever. Like just let me control him like it's like a Crash Bandicoot like ability. Like I have to control my Titan while he just goes nuts punching.
Falcon Punch, the finisher, the class.
Yes. Yeah. Just give it to me. Just give it to me. I want
Just give it him. It's
just please.
So, this definitely begs the question. Now that we know that there is one element, which is stasis, which is representative of ice, they've got to add two more, right? Like, there has to be symmetry.
I could see them going with symmetry. I also want to tie it into, just speaking of light for a second. Actually, you know what? We're gonna get to it later. I'm gonna reserve that for later because I think it's worthwhile to have for discussion.
Okay.
I will say that I don't know how you would do things, because this is the thing. Like when Cold Heart came out, they put it into the Arc tree, or like the Arc family, which made sense, right? Like, 'cause
it's blue.
blue. Like, I guess it's like what flavor Gatorade do you want? Like blue. So like you have that, but that's not really what Cold Heart was about. Cold Heart, like, its attribute was maintaining an increase of damage when you were kind of quasi freezing the enemy, which I guess is kind of like the fantasy that they were trying to fulfill, like maintaining the sustained beam of ice energy. So my interest too is, are they going to change Cold Heart after the fact? We've seen them do lots of different stuff with the guns. It's an exotic, so they can tune them uniquely. Are we going to see the change in Cold Heart to become stasis?
I feel like that's such an easy thing. Like, at the very least, like, just on release, be like, by the way, your first stasis weapon is in your vault. Go ahead and use it.
Yeah.
Or
how about it?
Or imagine, like, you could definitely play that. Like, my inner dungeon master is just like, yo, if you had this, like, a quest where you could tune it, you can't use it until you do this quest where you sacrifice Cold Heart to the darkness, and it charges up with stasis energy.
Something I love like that. Give me that.
I don't have hopes for that, but
I don't.
But Bungie, let's talk.
Yeah,
you could be our third podcast sponsor.
They're kind of by de facto both, because we're
third and also first. I don't know. Drifter came to us first. The power increase off those Umbral engrams was a very nice touch to the deal we worked out. But let's talk about who we're going to be fighting in Beyond Light. Yes. So there's the darkness is kind of not the villain in Beyond Light. So far this season, which we'll talk about later, and in the materials that have been released, the darkness has sort of just been like, hey, we're going to give you some stuff, kids. And then there's this one, like, Karen, and her name is Aramis, and she's this fallen a Kellen. And she's the one who is trying to usurp the power of the darkness and use it against the Traveler to get revenge for the fall of the Fallen. So we've seen her in all of the promotional materials. She actually is holding, so we'll talk about this in a second as well, this shard that's kind of similar to Eris's rock, but also not. It may or may not be the ghost equivalent of the darkness, but she's definitely got the darkness subclass stasis up, like, everywhere. Like, very similar to, like, the splicers with Siva. We see some enemies that have, like, a lot of, like, cold gear that drop down from wherever. Like, we're seeing a lot of new fallen models, which is great. And there's also, in the lore, some talk of Varix. Varix the Loyal, Kel of Kells and leader of House of Judgment, is hanging out with Aramis, and we don't know if he's her prisoner or if he's actually helping her.
If he's her prisoner, yo, my boy, I'm coming for you. Varix is my guy. But that's an interesting thing too. Like, there was a lot of, like, initial kind of pushback, like, when we saw that reveal, is like I even kind of, I'm not gonna lie, I rolled my eyes a little bit. I was like, okay, the enemy is a fallen captain, like, sure, like, that's fine. And I believe she was the one that was trying to steal the outbreak from the tower, right? That's like Lorna. It's cool. The big thing is, I'm going to relate it to the last time that we had a fallen based expansion, which was the one that came with Wrath of the Machine.
Rise of Iron.
Was Rise of Iron. Rise of Iron got a lot of flack from people because everybody was like, they're just like fallen with like Siva and like peg legs and stuff that they had. Dude, they had Siva peg legs. I'm not even running about that. Like, that was there. Pull that footage up.
Oh my
But
god. Jamie, Google that shit.
Jamie, bring that up. The footage, like when you play the game, what was cool about Rise of Iron was, one, that raid was astronomically amazing. Like, Wrath of the Machine was fantastic. I think when you drop into the Perfection Chamber is one of my top 5. Like, that might be my top 5 gaming moments, when you literally take a dive off the depths of the Cosmodrome into a crater in the earth, and you see this massive rhombus shape before you, like, with scale unlike anything. Like, that's the one thing that Bungie is like the master of, is creating scale, making you as the player feel small in the environment, which is obviously just awesome. But the thing, going back to like relating this to Aramis, when Rise of Iron came out, it was a little bit like, all right, like, these are some fallen that are like hopped up on the Siva, like hopping around like they're still legs or whatever. It didn't fundamentally change how we fought the fallen. Didn't really fundamentally change how we fought a servitor. Nothing actually changed the way that we combat the fallen, but the allure and the fun and the intrigue that was brought in Wrath of the Machine was the way that we fought the bosses. We were navigating through the old Cosmodrome area, which was always kind of like, you always have that at heart, like that's where you started this whole adventure. The thing is, when we fought the first boss using the monitors, having to kind of shut him down, those bosses in that fight felt so in tune with what Siva was, and it made those fights feel fundamentally different than fighting any fallen captain. We fought a ton of fallen captains before. Like, the first boss of the first story in the intro mission, in the alpha and the beta for Destiny 1, was fighting a fallen captain. It's generally the same. They stomp, they shoot rockets, they're big, they move around the arena. Yeah, they teleport, they call their dudes, and they generally use like arc-based stuff. My interest for Aramis, and I hope that I'm wrong, I hope that my eye roll is totally like nullified when I play this, is I want there to be a new kind of element being brought when we fight the Fallen. Like, when we fought Skolas in the Prison of Elders, fighting Skolas was still generally like fighting a fallen captain. We had to dodge his his attacks, and either get close to him with, like, I remember taking out Skolas with Fourth Horseman. I remember the first week with Solar, we'd use Galahorn and the Rock launcher. It's generally like the Fallen have kind of been one of the default enemies in Destiny, and my only real curiosity and kind of hope is that they really take the opportunity of this big expansion and to make the fight feel different. Make it feel, at least when we fight Aramis, presumably in the raid or wherever we're going to fight her, make it something fun. Give her and the other enemies something unique. Maybe have them use stasis or something. Maybe have them freeze us in place. Have us need to dodge AoEs in order to fight, instead of just hiding behind, the nearest your local pillar and then, shooting and like DPSing and stuff. I just want, they have such an opportunity, and they've proved that they can do this, is give us a new way to either fight or defend a new type of enemy. Because you could reskin an enemy.
Yeah.
They don't have to be a brand new model. Just make them act different and do stuff.
I think you're gonna get your wish granted, dude, and here's why. Well, like, first of all, like, if we look at just the history of the Fallen, not only like lore wise, but as an enemy, like, back in D1, they were at like every single planet, because like that was their story. Like, they were always just like the secondary enemy type, because like the Vex were on Venus and also the Fallen, and the Cabal were on Mars and also the Fallen, and the Hive were on the Moon and also the Fallen, and all of them were on the Earth. So like, there was just Fallen fatigue, but what's, like, if you look at how they are used in D2, specifically in Scourge of the Past, which is, I know, your favorite raid, you have the Berserkers, which brought this interesting gameplay mechanic that is totally different to everything else that we have right now. We still don't really have another enemy that's like the Berserkers, where you have to get in close, make them use an ability, and then shoot them in the front and the back at the same time. If we look at Wrath of the Machine, the mechanics that we were talking about for those raid bosses, they're very like in tune with how Destiny works as like a spatial game. Like they make you they really catered to like the game itself as opposed to just being like, all right, well, what did WoW do? Like what did like other MMOs do? Like they felt like really core Destiny experiences, and they were so like natural and interesting. Um, in the footage that we've seen, we see miniature versions of the Scourge boss, so we get some Metal Gears in there. We
Yeah.
see brand ass new models for
Brand.
yeah, brand ass new dude models for Fallen, and we do see them use stasis. We do see them sort of like the Fallen on, or sorry, like the Hive on Mars sort of pop up with ice and shit on them.
Yeah.
Um,
The only reason that I want to make sure that they use them is because to be fair, when they brought Mars back, we did see the Hive with ice, and I was like, oh, they're gonna use like ice powers, and then they didn't. They just popped out of an ice wall. That was my only fear on
yeah,
that.
that I'm trying to think of if there was a single new Hive mechanic, and I think it was just like Shield Knights were more in use. Like I don't
Yeah,
remember them being as like having that shield mechanic where you had to shoot through them as they were moving because the regular knights would just make the shield in front of them.
yeah.
Uh,
The only thing that they really added that's in Destiny 2's second expansion, which was Warmind. The only mechanic that they added was they would have hive crystals that popped up, and the knights would carry an orb, and you would kill the knight, grab the orb, and then hit down the crystal with it in order to either open a door or like engage past a DPS like phase or something like that. It didn't. That's my thing. Like I want them to shoot out some stasis at me, where if I get hit, I'm screwed and like I'm vulnerable for a while until either my allies can draw the aggro or I can mash buttons to break out or like something like I want it to be more difficult to fight them. That's what I want.
all right.
It's a challenge in that.
I'm very much in agreement. Fallen needs some love, and I
They
think
do.
they're on that path to be there. But now we got to talk about what the fuck was with the Exo Stranger that was following her little ghosty friend. According to Luke Smith, that was her little buddy, and the only thing he has confirmed is that it's not a ghost.
It's not a
Um,
good.
so I would like to pose the question to chat and to all of our listeners. Hit us up on social medias. Name the thing that was with the Exo Stranger, who is also allegedly Elsie Bray. Wrong answers only.
I'm eager to see that. Yeah, that was like interesting too. When I saw it come out, I was like, that doesn't look like a ghost. Because if you go back to the Stranger's lore, when she says when we're in like that Vex library in D1, she says, "Unlike you, I was not forged in light." So she mentions specifically that despite being an exo, because we know that we have guardians that are exos. They are guardians. They can be forged in light. Cade, first case scenario, he's a guardian
Rip.
and he is rest in glory. But Cade was a guardian and he was forged in light. So she was not. So what does her little flying buddy do? Maybe he kind of functions like a ghost in less of a sense that he can like revive her or whatever, and more so that whatever that little critter is, maybe it's just kind of works as like a computer for her, like a nav point,
Mhm.
because our ghost does a lot of just the minutia of connecting to the city's databases and like story exposition essentially. But
He's
maybe
our
for
walkie-talkie and a lockpick, and he
his
summons a ship.
my favorite thing, like I am constantly in a state of just like my head in my hands whenever we go into the deep darkness, and then like our radio communications with our ghost to whoever we're talking to doesn't work. I'm like, does depth of like that matter? We leave like planet systems and like the situation's fine, but like we go down and like we lose radio
I
communication.
think it's not really radio communication. It's entering darkness zones. So you're literally entering an area that has like a high concentration of like whatever
Yeah,
energy the darkness has. So you're actually being like your communications are being jammed just because the connection between the ghost and the traveler is like not strong.
right.
Um,
That
I
makes that makes sense.
I my prediction on the ghost thing is that they are literally your salvation, and we will call them salvations. Um, the thing that impersonated you, like if you like at the end of Shadowkeep when you go into the pyramid, and the darkness starts talking to you through your ghost. Uh, it
Yeah.
think about who else has talked to you through your ghost. Other ghosts, specifically Sagira, in the Osiris expansion. That
Friday it, yeah.
Yeah. So it is obviously a ghost analog. Like it has, like the
Something.
foundation is laid. I would like it to be like literally like the devil on your shoulder, where the ghost is like the angel, like Kronk style from Emperor's New Groove. I would love them to fight each other. Queen in chat said that she wants a girl ghost voice. I have actually thought this for a long time. Like it makes sense that, like, similar to like a Monster Hunter, we should be able to customize our ghosts. Like we customize their shells all the time. There are female ghosts in the lore. Like
having Sagira was just a nice change. Like I mean, I miss Dinklebot, like bless the boy. But I straight up miss Dinklebot. I would, if there was
that wizard came from the moon.
Give me that, like whatever cause, like
drunk Dinklebot, please.
Day one of that being in the shop. We 100%, and maybe that's something that they can do. Listen, if they could put Snoop on the GPS navigation, we could get voice mods and voice packs in for Destiny.
Oh my god, that would be an amazing deal. Like, think of how much money you would make if Morgan Freeman could be your ghost.
So much, dude.
Bungie, come on, we're here.
Anything. You know who I would get to? The guy that works for Bungie, that's the emote. I think his name is Sam. I don't know his last name.
Oh, the guy who does all the emotes.
Let me get him as my ghost, dude. That would be sick.
Yes.
I'm all about that. Like, just give me some choices. Like, just give me something that I could do for that.
Dude. Aubrey Plaza as April from Parks and Rec as your ghost, just like deadpan ghost.
He's over there.
We are so far off the Beyond Light reveal. This is not in the game. We are just spitballing.
That's what the podcast is about. We're having fun. We're opening up the door of our closed Destiny clan chat to the world.
All right. Just circling back to what we've planned out here, guys. Name the little buddy that has followed the Exo Stranger. Hit us up on Twitter underneath the program box, the stream box. I have Park's Twitter and I have my Twitter. Also, they're underneath our name tags here. So next thing we got to talk about is the Destiny content vault. This is the probably the biggest thing, I would say, that has already begun to affect us in game, because we know that some things are going away and some things are coming back.
Yeah, and I'm honestly, this is, if you remember this conversation that we had, I've been asking for them to do something like this since, I think it was, at the very least, I was really hammering in like last year. I think during Moments of Triumph, there was a story mission that you got to go down kind of to the base of the tower. Like you were going down there. It was like a memory fragment recovery thing. I forget exactly what it was, but when I was just like, this is amazing. We have this cool little spot. We get to go see more of the tower, get a little bit more of a feel like we're there, like we're protecting the city and stuff. And my immediate thought after that is also when we did the mission to go get Cade's memory in Shadowkeep, I was like, we're in the Cosmodrome. We're here. The assets are made. The assets are in Destiny 2. Like, they work. It's fine. We have the moon. Can they rotate out? Can we get some old content?
Can we get it, please?
Class. Can we has it?
Can we get it?
Just like, just bring it. Like, just let me have it. Like, I want it. I can have it. And I even said like that. This was my leveraging point. I'm like, I will give you like Nessus and Io. Like, you could just have them. Like, I don't care really. I don't really care that much. Like, you could take them back.
Yeah.
So I was like beyond stoked. Like, I popped off at my desk when I was watching the reveal. When they showed the Cosmodrome, I was like, Luke Smith, you give me Vault of Glass. And then it happened and I lost it. Because it was just we don't need a remake of Destiny 1. Like, that's not what we want. We don't want to go and play that whole game over again. We want to play with the stuff that we have. We want to have the titles and the stuff that we've got. But just give me parts of it. Like, just give us parts.
Yeah, that's what we're getting.
So it's perfect.
Let's lay it out real fast. So the Destiny content vault, come September, we are losing Mars, we are losing Titan. And Io. Are we losing Nessus?
We're not losing Nessus as far as I know, but we're losing Leviathan, and we're losing so we're let's go with what we're keeping.
Yeah.
We're keeping Earth. Earth is gonna have 2 locations. You're gonna have the Cosmodrome and the EDZ. So we're not losing the EDZ. We're gonna have the Moon. We're going to have. I think we're actually keeping Nessus. We should check that. Jamie,
Yep.
pull that up. But we are losing some of that stuff. We're losing the Leviathan as a whole and everything associated with it. So all of the Leviathan raids, that includes Crown of Sorrow, that includes the Menagerie. That stuff's all going. Also included in that, I wanted to point this out to all of us in the clan too, is the Tribute Hall. So if you don't have the emote and the stuff that comes from completing the Tribute Hall, you should definitely do that, because that's also the catalyst for Bad Juju. I get that they're going to be doing stuff to get all the other guns and the different things as it goes, but I have a feeling that a lot of that stuff might be really, really grindy, and I feel like a lot of people are probably closer than they're not to completing that stuff. So, public service announcement: finish your stuff this summer before it goes away.
Yes. So I looked it up. We are keeping Nessus, and Leviathan goes away.
Nessus, okay.
So, yeah. Worth noting, coming back with the Cosmodrome are the strikes with it. I think we're getting the original Sepix Prime strike. We're gonna take on that big boy server that we've killed like a billion times in a bunch of public events. But it's not really about what we're killing. It's about everything that leads up to it. That, like, there's so much nostalgia in it. And in the follow-up interview that Luke Smith did with Dr. Lupo, he even said that we might be getting sort of like that loading screen where we get like Zavala talking to us as our ship flies in. We don't have that in Strikes right now. We sort of just like load in, and then someone gets on our radio and tells us to do something. And most of the time, it's Asher Mir being like, "Hey, idiot, go kill some Vexen. My arm is Vex." So yeah, we're gonna get the Sepix Prime strike. I think we will probably get. That also means that the first Taken King strike is going to be there as well.
The first Taken King.
Why am I?
Is the one that's the one with the sword bearer in the middle when you go through into the Cosmodrome.
Yep.
So that's gonna be there. I mean, more of an interest for me than that is Omnigul.
That's what I meant. that is what I meant. Omnigul is going to be coming back, I think. Yeah.
The one that we loaded into not the moth yards, but like the train yard, I believe it was, and you go into the back part of that. You kind of load in the section where the tank is right before you go to fight Sepix, and you go in the other direction through the Cosmodrome.
Yeah. I remember that now. Cade talks to you off the rip on that one, and
yeah. Omnigul starts in the back end in the actual shipyards of the back there, and you kind of go up that left side with your Sparrow and go to find Omnigul. Question, and this is a big thing, which I think would be honestly kind of a letdown if they don't. So I don't expect them to omit this from it. But are we going to get things like the Grasp of Malok, strike specific loot that came in Destiny 1? When we go to the vault, are we going to get the Fatebringer, the Vision of Confluence, Pray This Timepiece, Vex Mythoclast, all of this stuff? I would assume that Bungie understands the player base enough that if they're going to acknowledge the fact that they're bringing out retro content from the Destiny Vault, then they know how much the loot means and how much all that stuff matters and stuff with it.
I mean, we wouldn't have done that same Sepix Prime strike a billion times over if the loot wasn't worth it. Like 2 blues and some tokens.
Really cool. Yeah, dude. Sepix had a really cool when they added like the Siva version of Sepix. He had a really good sniper rifle that came from there. That was his board.
So yeah, worth noting, Vogue doesn't come back off the top of the expansion, but it's 2021. I think they're going to launch Vault of Glass.
My guessing is going to be like spring. My thought too is with the content vault, I think it brings about a perfect cadence for them, because I know they've talked a lot that like creating raid content is big. It takes a lot from the team, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, a lot of production time. So my thought is, if they can refresh some content, throw it in to kind of put it in between, like in the fall, we're going to get a brand new raid. We're going to go down into the Deep Stone Crypt. We're going to have a whole new story mission, campaign, titles to chase, lots of other loot and stuff. So you've got that. So instead of having an expansion like the Black Armory, something coming in late December, maybe we'll just see something in January into February of like, hey, here's the Vault of Glass. Like with it comes some other stuff. This way they can kind of reserve some of their production time for those little expansions in between. And instead of giving us like a little half expansion, they can just give us some retro content that everybody will eat up and love, and then spend more of their time on whatever's coming next over the summer, like whatnot. So I think it has the potential. The Destiny 1 has a ton of content. They can go from Vogue, they can go into Crota, they can go into House of Wolves, Prison of Elders, fighting Skolas, throw a couple pieces of loot in there. There's a lot that they can revisit while keeping the game fresh with new content spliced in between, and also pepper in the classic content. So it's perfect. I really like the idea of the Destiny Vault.
I kind of want to see what happened to the Reef post Forsaken.
Yeah,
or like post Taken King even because we hear about it in the lore. We know that like you know, Marasov's gone. The power structure is kind of flawed. We have Uldren running around as a guardian now. You know,
they need to revisit that.
There are a lot of story threads that the Awoken in the Reef would benefit from like tying together, because what they did was essentially just move that all to the Dreaming City, and that's great. Like I love that place and all that story is incredible, but there's other location here that like where they actually like lived. Like there's a whole throne room that is kind of really janky and garbage compared to what we saw in the Dreaming City. So I think one thing worth noting also for the Vault of Glass is that Luke Smith said that they might be doing like champion enemies in that raid. Like we might see champion Praetorians in the beginning, and that gave me goosebumps. Like,
how about champion Gorgons in the maze?
Oh no, not that though.
How about that? That could happen.
I just kind of want a triumph for killing them all, like an emblem.
Oh yeah, that was always the choice of like, that's how you knew how the final boss was going to go. It's like, am I with murder hobos? Are we going to try to kill all the Gorgons, or are we going to try to just like do the jumping puzzle the way and just kind of like get through it and make it past? So it's gonna be interesting.
Speculation on this, just sort of story wise, because they are saying they're going to refresh it. We have had a lot of lore. Both on Kabir and Praedyth, and then also on the Exo Stranger, whose weapon, No Time to Explain, has Soon etched into it, which I think is from one of those guys. And then also we had missions back in D1 where we found the skeleton of, was it Praedyth or Kabir? I think it was Kabir.
I think the skeleton that we find is Praedyth. Kabir is the first one. Kabir was the Titan,
and he made the relic.
He pierces the shield or whatever it is. He creates his last bit of light is poured into the relic. When you're holding the relic and running that in the Vault of Glass, you are using the essence of Kabir poured into the shield. Like if you read the lore pieces on the armor or one of the Vault of Glass lore pieces, it basically says he drinks of the Vex. He said they taste of the sea. And that he pierced the light he pierced the veil of the vault to allow light in order to kind of give the last bit of his light and manifest it into the Aegis, which is what you carry around to take out the harpies that are in there, and then drop the shield for the Templar.
I missed that fight so bad. I can't wait, dude. I can't wait for the Templar fight
and see where to block the Templar's teleport and exactly where all of the confluxes are. I could literally draw for you where every oracle spawns in that raid.
I think I still like from the music notes of their spawn. I like every time we heard it and like the whisper, I was like whipping around like, where is it? So I think that so that all that goes to my speculation of, in the same way that we saw the tomb of Saint 14, there's very much a situation where we could go through the Vault of Glass, through time and space or whatever, and try and save these people and these guardians who have like given us weapons and introduce new NPCs. I think that would be mad cool.
I would love that. I would love extracurricular activities to even do in the vault, kind of like what we did in D1, where there was a mission you had to be pledged to future war cult and then get like a little 1 or 2 levels in the future war cult. And then Lakshmi sends you back to the vault to fight this other Templar, and you enter it at like a different point in time and stuff like that. The whole Vault of Glass and everything, all of the lore, whether it was purposely perfectly crafted and placed there, or it was kind of added once they kind of started to see the picture of the lore. It doesn't matter to me what it was. It's magnificent, and I'm just excited to go back and play it. The thought of getting the Moments of Triumph-esque looking ornaments for the armor from D1 is just like, give me that.
I mean, I'm hoping that sort of reward structure comes back. I think let's just skip ahead to talking about rewards. In the follow-up with Dr. Lupo, from the reveal, Luke Smith talked a lot about how they're gonna, just that they are looking at restructuring PvE rewards. They spent a lot of time in PvP trying to get trials up and running for end game PvP content and PvPers to have like their thing, but PvEers kind of felt thrown to the side for a little bit. Not gonna lie, they kind of did. Like there was some narrative content, but it wasn't end game content like a dungeon like we got for this season. So the first thing that he was talking about is like the reward structure of Grandmaster Nightfalls, which sort of like right now they drop high level exotics and ascendant mats, but making it so that they're actually worth doing as compared to the master level Nightfalls, because the master level Nightfalls are far easier and drop essentially the same stuff.
Yep, pretty much. And I have some stuff I want to talk about as far as the reward structure for like the Ascendant shards and the way that they've been kind of implemented. But I think overall, like, I ran those when they first came out just to be like, oh, is it going to be, because I remember in D1, coming home from work, reset day, everybody wants to pair up and get the Nightfalls done, because the Nightfall was one of your few chances at dropping exotics, and having those guaranteed chances that were, or not guaranteed, but having those high probability chances to drop an exotic was fun. It was fun to chase, and it's there and it's good and it's your source for that. But ultimately, like, the time sink invested and putting a team together and then like locking your loadouts and like doing the champions and stuff, it ultimately just didn't really feel all that rewarding. I feel like it was a good idea. This goes back to something that Dado has been asking for, that I have been wanting as well, is if you're going to make an activity like a Grandmaster Nightfall or even just the Master level Nightfalls, give us an in-game scoreboard. Like, let me at least feel like, all right, I'm prodding my way through this, this strike. Let me at least be like, oh, cool. Like we tore it up. Like we killed it last night. Dan, one of our clanmates last night, we ran the Pit of Heresy, and he even remarked that like, oh, it was dope. Like it was one of the first times in a while that we did a one phase DPS. Like we dropped the boss in one DPS phase, which was dope. Like it's fun to do. There's that missing element from Destiny 2 that hasn't been there since D1, which was feeling so damn overpowered and just seeing how quickly you could just douse like an enemy strike boss or something like that.
Right.
Which I think would make, if you added something like a scoreboard to chase and having something that was just fun to just like the catharsis of just decimating everything in a strike and getting your chance at rewards, it would make a lackluster like loot pool more tolerable. Like it would make it more doable, even if it was just like, all right, I'm gonna get materials and like an Ascendant shard, like maybe an exotic, or like probably just gonna be like a world drop legendary that like I don't care about. If there was other elements involved in that, I think you don't really need to even do too much to those activities to make them have a much higher incentive to want to do. Because I don't do them.
Yeah,
like most of us in the clan don't, because it's just, we'd rather just go and do other stuff. Like it just kind of lacks fun,
So This reminds me, so for new viewers and people not in the clan, I used to work for a company called Activision Blizzard, and in their esports division. And one of the projects that I worked on was the Mythic Dungeon Invitational. And in WoW, it's you would load into a dungeon, team of 5, and you have a thing called a keystone. And what that does is it sets a difficulty level very similar to the way whatever the Nightfall card is called now. And you set every week there in the live game, there's like 3 modifiers, and then like you add on modifiers as the difficulty level goes up. And these aren't just like Arc Singe, Solar Singe. These are like, hey, every few seconds a volcano spawns at your feet, and you have to get out of the circle, or you take a bunch of damage, or you get like reduced healing or like at certain areas of time, and so your healer is always trying to like spam healing at a certain period of time. But what it also did was it created this ecosystem where people were racing in these dungeons with these crazy modifiers at the same time, and we made it into like a whole esport. Like seeing that in Destiny would be amazing. Obviously, I don't want them to copy WoW 1-for-1, but having an element of competition in PvE, because that's essentially what people are asking for. Like, they're asking for rewards that are not just loot based, and that's really like bragging rights. Like not only does it solve your problem of like, well, we need a competitive game mode that's PvE and Gambit, but it creates a really like. It also solves this issue of like Destiny not being really friendly to speed running, because like they've nerfed out all of the fun speed running things like the World Light Zero bug, and like sword skating and all that fun stuff.
Titan skating.
Yeah, Titan skating. Which come on, man, that's broken for PvP. But
Hey,
it's been there since D1.
D1 is a good time.
Anyway, my point is like having that structure, yes, that scoreboard, but then also the difficulty level goes to infinity on that, because you have all these different modifiers. You can continue to add modifiers, and you can continue to make things harder and harder and harder. That you're setting yourself up with a system that is just going to pay dividends, and I would love to see that out for strikes.
Yeah.
Another thing Luke Smith said was the idea of gilded titles. So in the way that you have your seasonal title, like I have my Almighty title, if you do a certain, you get that title at however many triumphs, but then if you do something beyond that, that title becomes golden, and shows like who's actually like god tier PvE man or woman or person.
Yeah. That was also, I think that was Lupo that brought that up to Luke Smith, and I think of that too. Like, the titles are a legendary rank; they're purple in color. Destiny has the exotic rank, which is reserved for gear and guns, but also a select few other emblems. I'm thinking of when we went flawless for the first time in D1. It was the only exotic emblem ever in the game. There's exotic ships for doing certain things. I remember a couple summers ago going through the moments of triumph, again deciding to grind all 3 characters for that really, really grindy thing, literally just to get the ship that was unique. And I still fly that ship today on 2 of my 3 characters for that reason, just because it's just so damn hard to get. There's these little things, and you get that stuff literally for the moment of, I think it's cool, and that time where you're playing with a friend going, hey, who's got that ship that looks like this? Like, that thing's crazy. And you're like, that's me. I wasted a lot of time trying to do that, but I got it because I wanted to floss when you asked me that question so you could check out the drip. But anyway, the thing is with gilded titles, there is absolutely space for them. If they go in that direction, my only request too is that we bump down the rarity of some of the other easier titles. I don't think a seasonal title is anything that difficult to acquire, and I feel like those could be blue. I feel like something like getting Cursebringer or Cursebreaker, or the titles that have to do with like the raids and stuff like that, I feel like that's way harder. And if we're gonna go for gilded titles, I would kind of like to remove the rarity of some of the other seasonal stuff, some of the stuff that's not that tough, just in order to reinstate the value of some of the other titles. Because let's face it, like a seasonal title is it takes some doing, but it's also not that insanely rare.
Right.
Like when the 2019 title was out, how many people did you see in the tower with that? Everybody.
Everyone.
Pretty much like that
I
was a
didn't
lot.
get it.
That was my first title. I was like 3/4 of the way through like 3 other titles, but then I was just like, well, shit. I was like, this is only here for this bit. I've got to go and do the 2019 because it's cool.
There was
I
one
like
thing that I was just like, I'm not gonna do it. Sorry.
there was a couple people in the clan that were just like, see ya. I have no interest in that thing. But it's just like that's my only request, and that might seem kind of shitty to some, is being like, what do you mean? Like my savior title is not going to be legendary? I worked hard to get that. Like you did, but also like if we're gonna do gilded, then let's also equate the rarity properly. I guess because if you're gonna bother to designate some as a gilded title, and I love that idea, and especially even taking them further, then maybe even start some of the titles as blue, and then let's just level that same title up. So if you have Curse Breaker, you can have Curse Breaker that's green, then like do more stuff, and then you get the blue version, then do more and get the legendary, and then make it exotic. I'm down for that.
I'm thinking that these titles, they should come with more like visual effects, similar to like the way Bungie employees had flames on their skulls back in the Halo days. Like we have that for high level Nightfalls, and we used to have it for doing that weekly, like back in D1. But now, like I don't remember last time I saw a dude with a light around their head.
No,
and then also like it goes back
as well.
Yeah,
that's like it. No one even has that anymore because nobody bothers.
Would love to see that. All right,
I completely agree with you on that one.
Let's move on to our next point of discussion, which is the next 2-3-ish years of Destiny have been laid out in front of us. After Beyond Light is complete, we're going to get another expansion. It's called Destiny 2, The Witch Queen, launching in what is most likely fall of 2021. This I'm excited for. Savathun has been an active presence in D2. She was hinted at all the way back to the Books of Sorrow, which was an incredible like tome of possibly lies created by Savathun herself. Having just one expansion reveal is pretty cool, but it's not the only one, because we also have Lightfall in 2022 that has been announced, which is a working title, but you can see we'll go back into these graphics as we talk about them specifically. Pyramid ship at the direct center of Lightfall. So I guess let's start with Witch Queen.
It's pretty exciting. I think there's been, since D2 and at least since Forsaken especially, we've gotten kind of more of an emphasis on Savathun and her intentions for the Guardians, and kind of striking back against us, against the light users for killing Crota and Oryx. So it's gonna be interesting. And I think what's really cool is, especially these couple of story missions that we've been running this season in Destiny 2, going to that room where it was just like a ton of the eyes. I think it was crazy. Like I remember fearing those like mad in D1 because they were definitely more lethal, but seeing them all together and seeing the court of Savathun or whatever it was called, that seems insane. The stakes are going to be really, really high when we do finally fight Savathun, because I'm assuming that this is building up to an even bigger and bigger narrative, and they're going to intertwine Savathun, and we'll probably see a reveal for her at some point during the story, which was crazy. I remember seeing Oryx for the first time, and then you beat him in the story mode. That ending story cinematic was just awesome. Then you go into King's Fall raid. I know you mentioned that Wrath of the Machine was my favorite raid. Wrath of the Machine is actually not my favorite raid.
No, I said that Scourge of the Past was your favorite raid. Because reasons?
Scourge of the Past is also not my favorite raid in Destiny. Maybe it will be after this week if the game decides to give me anarchy. But anyway, King's Fall is my favorite raid in Destiny. But seeing Oryx be massive against the Saturn backdrop out on like the bridge of his ship, the Dreadnought, was just outstanding. And it was a big mood. That's all I can really even use to say
Yeah.
it. So
Big
seeing
mood.
that and having the bar set really, really high for a good hive-based expansion. We had Shadowkeep as a hive-based expansion, and Shadowkeep was fine. There was some cool stuff in Shadowkeep. I didn't really. I think Shadowkeep kind of bundled together with the season pass was kind of a down spot. Once people realized that Shadowkeep itself was sort of buffed by the first season pass along with it. So like a lot of the stuff that you were doing was actually the season stuff and not necessarily Shadowkeep stuff. Whereas when you go to play Forsaken, there's so much to do in Forsaken.
Right.
And there's virtually no FOMO in Forsaken. You don't have to do it now, like during like the setting stuff. Forsaken, you can go and get those titles still to this day. You can still go do the Ascendant challenges. You can do all that stuff. You can explore that city and make it through that raid. Nothing was removed, and I love that Luke Smith dealt with that straight away when they were revealing these other expansions, that they know that there is a little bit too much like FOMO and stuff, like forcing people to play. Like there's some times that like, you know, everybody, we just get busy. We can't devote all the time, and like maybe if you miss a week or two, then the rest of your friends are kind of falling off and moving on to other stuff. And then maybe ultimately you don't end up getting to squeeze the most out of your season pass and maybe get all this stuff in there.
Right.
So one, just along with the Witch Queen, just knowing that those big changes are coming is awesome too. I wanted to jump back because we actually skipped a point too, but this relates to the Witch Queen because it's coming around the proximate time of the Witch Queen.
Yes.
Cross save and cross play, more or less. In it's coming in stages. So it's going to get this fall. We're going to get cross play within console families. So that is the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 players will be able to play with each other. Same for Xbox One and Xbox Series X players. You're going to be able to stay. And if you buy the game on PS4, you get a PS5, you know, down the road, you're going to have all that content unlocked. Like they have confirmed that that's the purchase. Works the same way on Xbox. They mentioned something with Stadia too. I actually wanted to go back and check that, but it almost seemed like they were bringing the Stadia user base into the mix with the rest of the PC player base, which makes sense. Like, why would you have them out there on their own?
I think that that was definitely more of along the lines of the entire system becoming cross-play during Witch Queen, which they did announce would be a thing. So hopefully we'll see that sooner rather than later into the expansion, like preferably on launch. And I'm just super excited because like I'm so tired of not having the ability to play with friends on PS4 and Xbox. Like it's
a bummer.
It's a huge bummer, and it was also a huge bummer because if you're a hardcore Destiny player, you play on multiple, or you played on multiple platforms, especially in D1, and like having the experience of now losing my stuff twice. Like I'm really glad I don't have to lose it a third time.
Yeah. As someone who had 3 characters that I would raid with on PlayStation, 3 characters that I'd raid with on Xbox back in the D1 days, it's super nice to know that if a friend wanted to jump through something, I have a number of friends that are like, hey, can you like run through the story? Like I want to catch up on Destiny. I haven't played it in a while, but I'm on PlayStation or I'm on Xbox. Like it'll be nice to not have to be like, all right, I guess I could dust off the console, but then I got to go play it in 30 FPS, and I've been playing it in a blazing 120 FPS on my PC. Now you can just like meet them in the middle, wherever they are, wherever you are, doesn't matter. Like that's one thing that I've been asking for in gaming in general is cutting down the barriers especially with big MMO-esque games where your loot is everything. not having to lose that when you go, or even just simply, hey, I'm gonna go do a nightfall with friends. Like, oh, I got some really cool. Like this has happened to me a ton of times on Xbox, where I'm like, oh, great, now I get the exotic that I could never get on my main account, but it's over here. But this is where I only play like once every 2 weeks or something like that. So I don't really get to even make the most of it during my normal play session. So kudos to Bungie for doing that. Not only that, but not only cross save, but intending to
Crossplay.
do full on crossplay is awesome.
Yeah,
Big moods on that.
Huge. So moving back to the Witch Queen discussion, I kind of echo your sentiment about Shadowkeep. Shadowkeep is to D2 as Dark Below was to D1. And I'm hoping we get like in terms of impact, I would say it's very similar feels. Like we're literally fighting the daughter of Crota.
Yeah, I'll give it that. I was gonna relate. Dark Below really just had a public event and a story mode, and the only good thing that really came of it was the Crota raid. I would liken that more to like maybe
the season,
the Warmind expansion.
Yeah,
because nothing low as the Osiris expansion, but
it's tough because like the moon is a recycled place. It got bigger, but we're revisiting places. Like a lot of the things we did in there, literally rehashings of other content that we've done, like Nightmare Hunts, are just rehashed bosses. The Lost Sectors actually are kind of the most intricate and cool parts of the moon, I would say, nowadays. Just in the way. Yeah. So, moving forward to Witch Queen, talking about Savathun and what we're dealing with now. I mean, we have Nokris, who apparently somehow revived himself and then used us Guardians to kill himself again, end up in the Ascendant Realm, using the last of Zal's power that wasn't attached to the Whisper of the Worm. And then sitting in the Ascendant Realm, waiting for him, his aunt, Aunt Savathun, Anti-Savvy.
Anti-Savathun.
Yeah. So we're hearing Nokris this season. We are seeing people data mine the Court of Savathun, literally the Court of Oryx rehashed. One of the best, in my opinion, activities that was in Taken King, that was just in free play, free roam.
Fun. That was the thing. Is it was it was their tweak on public events, but you knew where to go and find it. You could see from across the Dreadnought. You're like, oh man, there's some blueberry doing Court of Works.
Hello.
Should we go help him? All right, yeah, let's go help him. Let's go do it. And then you get to chatting with people and stuff. It was cool. It was cool to put the tokens in and queue the events and then try to knock them down in a quick thing. I think Destiny has a really good system for playing the game, and I mentioned this earlier, but it's fun to just destroy a boss very quickly. It's satisfying because when you have 6 or however many players in your fire team doing work, bringing out their best TPS weapons and just shitting on a boss, it's fun. It's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Court of Works kept you in a small arena. You didn't have to chase a boss through a strike. You didn't have any of that. You just show up, destroy, get your loot, rinse, repeat.
I think worth noting, though, something that did come back this season is the boss mechanic of having to bring 2 bosses together to drop their shields in contact, and that's the most infuriating thing. We are definitely seeing people who have picked up D2 without playing that part of D1, and the amount of times where I've yelled at my screen "No, spawn closer," is too high to count, and we've only had that for a week.
To be fair, one of the detriments of Destiny as a whole is, for us, using our clan as an example, is as we've even brought more and more people into it over the years, the barrier of people being like, wow, I had no idea how to do this until I started playing with you guys, or wow, I didn't even know this was a part of Destiny. The game doesn't really tell you everything. like I feel like that boss fight that you're talking about, like bringing the shields close together, which originated in the Court of Orcs. I feel like you had an opportunity for your ghost to just have some dialogue where if you just couldn't get it down, your ghost to be like, try bringing them together, see how that works, or just some hint.
It's
like,
in the
game.
top left corner of your screen where it says like public event contact. Like it steps through the phases of the thing. So it's like bank moats, bank the bloom, and then it'll be like bring the two bosses together to drop their shields, and no one's just like.
It actually says that, really.
It literally says that. Like, that's the that is the
proof. I didn't know that was there. I just like I kind of figured it out by like playing the game. That I'm like, oh, okay, it's this mechanic. It's good that it's written. I feel like even for me, like I didn't even notice that. If you had ghost dialogue talking to you, going, try this mechanic, or throw that over there, the game kind of lets you just sit there and just with nothing to do. And ultimately, like a perfect example is this public event, on IO. You kind of need the blueberries to do their part. There's only so much jumping far away, soloing a plate with the two yellow bars, grabbing the ball and trying to dupe it as possible. And even then, if you're by yourself with a bunch of blueberries that don't know the mechanics or don't know what to do, you could potentially not get to the heroic. Like
that's the worst part.
That happens.
So worse than that feeling of like having a blueberry pull the bosses apart is you like getting into a groove, really nailing the ball duping glitch, and you're just like, yes, bloom, where'd it go? And then some fucking blueberry has picked up the ball and just ran. They're gone, and they're not even gonna bank it. So yeah, there is a lot of really esoteric and arcane Destiny knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do think that if you're watching somebody duplicate a ball over and over again, you should just leave them alone. Like,
if the number's going up, then just let it be.
It's definitely a game sense thing.
Yeah, we talk about game sense quite a bit in the clan.
All right.
Yeah, I do think that's just even it's good that it says it in the upper left corner. But I mean, a perfect example is I didn't until you told me that. I didn't know that was there. I knew what to do.
You know.
It was fine for me, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that just don't read the top left corner of their screen when they're doing an event, because honestly, I'll even make this argument too. It's never been necessary for most of Destiny to read the top left of your screen. Most of the time, it's just like pursue the darkness. Like that it says that a bunch in other stuff in the past for Destiny. So I would argue that even this is perfect, because you could even make the argument that the game kind of lulls you into not needing to read the UI in order to play it, but it also requires you to know how to do X, Y, and Z other stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the tentative Destiny 2 Lightfall in 2022. There's really not much to go off on here, but this graphic, I would like to point out, obviously, other than the pyramid ship, the circles around it, very they sort of echo the Dreaming City sort of Marisov court Ascendant realm feel for me. So I get the feeling that Lightfall will see us interact with the Taken Queen some more. Not Taken Queen, the Awoken Queen. Ugh.
Queen.
Just Queen. Queen Bartley will be the either the she could be the antagonist. Just her and her hawksaw sitting there in a chair with a sandwich, waiting for us. But dude, I'm super excited.
Seems cool. I actually want to mention, shout out to Sean Barley, one of our guildies. He mentioned something when we were chatting about it too, is that what if Lightfall is the end of Destiny as a franchise? What if that's the last part? What if they're prepping all this stuff and going, this is the big finale, it ends here? What are you gonna what's your feeling on that?
That goes counter to the idea that Destiny is now an MMO, because MMOs don't really end.
They don't.
They do die. They don't like end with a finale. They just die. Like
player base.
But it's Bungie, and Bungie does what Bungie wants, man. So
they do. They do, and I know that they have their new IP and everything that's going on. It's just really like a similar game to Destiny and stuff. If you look at active player bases, even just from the PC side alone, which we know is a smaller percentage of the community, the concurrent numbers for the announcement day when people were playing, when the dungeon dropped and everything, when the new season started, we were cresting the same concurrent users as World of Warcraft. Which is,
I'm not sure that does Blizzard actually release those numbers anymore. I'm pretty sure they don't.
I don't know if they do. There's a number of tracker sites that kind of give you like the estimate, like the roundabouts and stuff. So that's the one thing that I'll always say for Bungie is that even when a season isn't good, like arguably the last 2 seasons have been lackluster. I really didn't even spend too much time playing them. I didn't even get the ornaments or the later parts of the season passes, just because I wasn't. My methodology is don't ever force yourself to play a game just because you love the game, the franchise. Like, play it when you want it, play it when you want to, play it when it's fun. Because ultimately, that's going to also tell the developer, hey, more people are playing. Like, this is, this is good. Whatever we're doing here, this is good. But yeah, I think that the more I think about it, the more like, even if you took a fraction, like the game is free to play now, right? So you have to consider that and consider like the finances and stuff. If you take a small segment of that, and you even look at like the active users on like a subreddit for a game is obviously going to be the minority of your player base. When you have a ton of people logging in and discussing things on your subreddit, those are more hardcore players. And then even a smaller subset of that is going to be players that are spending money on the game. But with the amount of players that are playing Destiny, it's actually quite healthy. And I feel like it's more than enough to sustain content for Bungie.
I think
As long as they,
if you
as
look
long
at
as they're interested in
yeah, absolutely. I think just the number of people who are spending money in Destiny is higher than the number of people who go to the subreddit. I would say,
you might be right.
Reddit's very, it's a place where you kind of have to have a very hardcore interest to even be like, yeah, I want to talk to other people who play this game. Whereas you have access to, like, we just qualify with the idea of spending money on Destiny is it's literally you could buy Destiny the collection. You could even go buy Destiny 1 right now. Like, you could be spending money on silver or season passes, or the expansions. There's a lot of like the microtransactions, like it or not, are really good for generating recurring income on a game. Because there's always going to be a whale. There's always going to be someone who dumps a bunch of money into silver. That's me. I'm that guy. Over like the dumbest stuff. You show me a ship that's like a slightly different, like literally at the stage of Destiny where we were at, where they were releasing the same ship but with like different wings on it, like facing a different direction. I was the guy dropping money on that. I get it. I'm the whale. There are more people like me out there.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, and
Yeah.
I think Destiny specifically has a great, like, now the Eververse practices were not good at all, and I'm never going to defend them. They started adding armor sets that were way better looking, and there are more of them into the Eververse store. That wasn't good. Obviously, they learned that. Obviously, they know that, and they're moving in a different direction for it. I think the way that they're doing it currently with this season is pretty solid. They're like, hey, here's an ornament, a new ornament for a Warlock, Titan, Hunter, a couple new ornaments for guns. Rotate through the store. There's like a get it while you want it now. It's going to move out, and then there's the cosmetic armor sets and stuff that they sell. I think it's pretty good. I mean, the prices have never felt absurd. The only thing that I'd argue is a little bit too much is the finishing moves. I think it's like $20 for the 3-pack of like class specific finishing moves. Doesn't seem warranted to me when it's $5 less for 3 emotes of your subclass, which I put emotes and finishing moves in the similar category. They don't really do anything exceptionally different. They're just a cool look, but they're cool. Like, you buy them. Like, I want the Titan. I have the Titan, like the one where he like stomps down the shield, the hammer, the striker fists, where he cracks his knuckles together and stuff. Like, that stuff's cool. And I think all those things add more little bits of spirit and stuff to the game. I just want to see them make stuff that people want versus just putting out a sheer amount of stuff hoping people are going to buy some of it to keep the game afloat. I think it's an easier sell to buy something that you could tell had some time put into it by the developers, by the art team, than it is something where it's just like, just throw out some chaff, or reappropriate some assets, change the color on this, fade the texture, like the Omega Mechanos Titan ornament set, which was from I think season 2 of Eververse. That was also the exact same armor set model type for the Garden of Salvation armor. I don't remember that. There was controversy when the Garden of Salvation came out. They're like, hey, this is the Omega Mechanos armor set from Eververse. That's now
it's just a different color.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
texture on it and stuff.
like as we're talking about, like as we're launching a discussion about this season, essentially Eververse in this season, the way they're doing it is fine in my opinion. The problems with it though are like, well, the best thing I think that they're doing is they have a list of things that you cannot get with like Bright Dust, things that are silver only purchases. Great. Like we want to know all those things ahead of time. Awesome. It's just the huge problem with like all of those like emotes and skins and finishers is that outside of the season pass, there's no way to achieve those in game.
Yeah, like, I missed the ornaments for Titan Dad Saint 14. I missed the helmet because I ran out of time. I was busy during that season when that was there, and I just didn't really have the time to kind of grind out that season pass.
Yeah, well, I get.
Go ahead.
I think just in general, like this goes to like cosmetics and microtransaction discussion in gaming and like as a whole. Like there's these skins, like for example the trial skins they had last season that you had to buy. You can't earn those through trials. Like that doesn't make sense to me.
That doesn't make sense at all. It's so weird. It was so weird getting the exotic sparrow that totally was Shadowkeep related from an engram. I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, all right, this should have been in the bonus loot drop for beating the dungeon. That's where a sparrow would be. Like when we did Crota and when we did Vault of Glass, the sparrows that were for the raid, like raids used to have sparrows and shaders that you just get from doing them. Like you would just always get them. You'd have too much. You'd be like, all right, I got the shader, I got the sparrow. But it was bonus loot. It was in addition to what your actual gear loot was. And it kind of added another level of playability where, you maybe I'll run this again. I don't need anything from this raid, but I'm taking friends through it for fun. And oh, awesome. You know what? I got the sparrow. I can rock that. It's just a little, there's multiple layers of loot, from important loot to loadout loot, like, not just like, increasing my level loot, but increasing my actual perks and value in guns and like gear loot to just cosmetic loot. Like they always had that in Destiny 1. And it's something I think they lost a little bit of the evenness of distribution in Destiny 2. I guess the best way to say it. And I understand the Eververse store. I don't think anybody really has ever had an issue with the idea of the Eververse store. The problem is just that it kind of felt like our season passes were bare, so that we can take an armor set that would have been part of that and then just like throw it into the Eververse store and just be like, oh, here's this season's Eververse thing. And you're just like, well, I want to earn this. Like I want to feel like I earned it as opposed to just buying it.
Yeah.
But hopefully that stuff changes in the future. They have spoken about that they missed the mark on the way that they were doing that.
Agreed entirely. I think let's move on to this week's TWAB, which just came out. Pretty small for this week.
Understandable.
Yeah,
they dropped a lot of content on us.
So I think, but what's coming up for next week is Iron Banner. With the reprise weapons, the assault rifle and the sidearm. These are reprised from like previous seasons of D2, right? Not D1.
Yeah, these are things from D2. The AR was from one of the first seasons of Iron Banner, which I actually just sharded my original version of because I realized I'm like, this was back when there weren't random perks.
Yep.
Do you remember that in D2 when there were every gun was a static perk loadout on the gun? And then the sidearm, which is a good sidearm. Some presumably random rolls for that. The AR, I believe, was a 600 RPM, which is on par with everyone's new favorite, the Gnawing Hunger. So that's cool. That's fun. I could have also sworn, we might have to have Jamie pull that up. I could have sworn that they were showing the Iron Wreath, the sidearm that was from D1. I could have sworn I saw
It's
that.
the Fool's Remedy.
Is
it's
that
a
a
D2 one.
reprisal of that? Is that going to be like the quest item?
It's a reprised one.
But it didn't look
Oh.
the same as the reprisal one. Like not talking about from the TWAB. I'm talking about actually from like
No idea.
recent like showing from that. I guess we'll talk about that if it comes up, if it's the quest for it, because I know that they did the bow last season, so maybe that'll be a quest for this season.
Yeah,
a lot of
I don't think that I'd be interested to see what the quest is, because there is no pinnacle. Like the bow was the pinnacle for last season, and so now without these reprised weapons being a part of that quest, it's just you're unlocking the armor again and the new shader. So yeah, it's like blue, red instead of like it's green. Yeah, it's very movie poster-ish, like circa 2009, like every Transformers movie. Like just straight up Michael Bay sunset shader. So yeah, I'm gonna play it. I'm not gonna not play it, but I'm not like excited for either of these guns.
I'm a little excited to just play because in the same way that this always happens, there's general buzz and excitement for the game in general, which I think makes playing an activity like Iron Banner easier and more fun, just because everybody's more into it. Everybody's having a better time with it. So hunting down gear and chasing rolls and stuff is a little bit more fun. The more interesting part is actually skill-based matchmaking will not be a part of this Iron Banner. It's gonna go back to just pure connection and whatever the faster matchmaking queue, which is fun. So you're gonna get 6-man teams stomping people, and you're also gonna have people just kind of doing whatever, not necessarily skill based. I'm kind of always at war with whether or not I want skill based matchmaking in PvP. I think for Destiny, the fact that the connections and like the tick rate being so like bad in general and not having dedicated servers, I almost feel like there's really not too much of a point in implementing skill-based matchmaking, because someone that's on my skill level might be in the middle of the country, whereas I'm on the East Coast, and that's not going to be a good experience for both of us. I just never saw the value in adding skill-based matchmaking to a game that doesn't have a good tick rate or server-based server-based PvP in general. That's just my thoughts on it. So I think removing that for this season, Iron Banner has always kind of just been like a fun activity where you get those players off the bench that are maybe PvE only, but they're like, I got to get that loot. So let's go chase it and stuff. We're getting a nice armor set that will not be sunset as well. So nice to mix up the gear and stuff and have that.
I kind of hate the way the Warlock looks in that. Like,
as they look weird. It's one of the
so
oldest sets reprised.
It's and the shader on it doesn't make it any better.
It's a little whack. It's a little whack.
Yeah.
But I'm excited just for the sake of playing.
Yeah. We should talk about the new perks on the reprised guns. Iron Grip, which improves weapon stability at the cost of reload speed, and Iron Gaze, which improves weapon target acquisition at the cost of stability.
I'm reading that right now. That's actually news to me. That's kind of cool. Actually, that's really interesting.
It definitely will. Okay, so if we think about like which guns are going to be effective for this, Iron Gaze is going to be a huge one. Hand cannons, specifically Krimel's dagger, right? Is the one. Yeah, hand cannons would be huge for that. Even the scout, the scout and the sniper will be huge for that. Like the sniper doesn't necessarily need stability if you're going to try it. Well, right. It depends.
That's the point. You kind of make that trade off for guns that you don't. That's the RPG aspect that we've always been wanting more of. That I think that's pretty cool. Are these armor mods or are these gun mods?
These are gun mods. Okay. So, and they're actually only dropping on the reprised weapons, I think.
That's fair.
I can't really. It's not really clear on the TWAB.
What to do live and see what it's about.
Yeah, like target acquisition and at the cost of stability, Iron Gaze I think is definitely going to be a perk that I would want to use. I'm not quite sure how I would want to use Iron Grip because playing on PC, stability is not really something I need to worry about.
I would make the argument as for things that already have. There's a number of guns that have absurdly good reload speed, or you also might roll like Outlaw on a gun that's just wildly unstable, but you feel like, man, if I could land these crits, it might be like sick to have that, to where you can trade a little bit of that reload speed for more stability. Further, this is actually really interesting to me, especially if it's a gun mod, because you're then with the combination of the armor mods that like the seasonal stuff, like for example, pulse rifles and stuff for us right now, trading that, making those trade-offs gives you that RPG element of customizing your ability to use your guns and the guns themselves working in conjunction with you as the player's skill, and basically making a whole different gun out of it. If you think about it, it opens up the reason for wanting a different role on a gun than you would have normally wanted, because normally it's like, all right, we want outlaw, we want multi-kill clip, we want good stability, and we want range, right? Because we don't want the damage fall off. So I feel like in some of these instances, depending on the gun, depending on the player, and depending on the other optional perks, this is interesting.
Yeah, I think also the mods on the gun. So these are perks, not mods. So like if you were to use Iron Gaze for target acquisition, you no longer have to use, target acquisition mods.
So these are actually perks. These are not mods that you
correct.
Oh, okay, I understand that better now. Got it.
So it open like right now, if I'm using like target acquisition mod, I'm choosing between that or like Icarus Grip, where now you can totally throw Icarus Grip on something that has better target acquisition. So there's that.
That makes sense. That either way, that adds flexibility to your guns and to your loadouts and to see the things. I honestly, I'm all for it. I love, like I've said from the beginning of playing the game, the more RPG elements they want to give me. The only thing that I request that they remove some RPG-esque things is having too many materials. But that's always a complaint of mine, is that there's just too much stuff. Everything's too expensive in terms of materials. But the more choice that we have as players to spec into, to get different stuff working and all that, all for. Give me that.
Yes, absolutely.
Down for it.
Let's move on to Prophecy. New dungeon. Give me your first impression.
First impression was, one, I love that they just dropped that on us like instantly. They're like, hey, here's a massive announcement of like new stuff, and here's a dungeon. Go load into it. Go level up for a reason to go play it. I think it's awesome. I think lore-wise, it's a really cool place. I think anything that you want to revisit that has to do with the 9, immediately awesome. Interesting new mechanic in it too, with the light motes and the dark motes. I thought that was kind of cool. I liked it. I liked a dungeon that came out of nowhere, and they were just like, "Here, just go do it." Nothing but good things to say. I know that it's going away for like a little bit, but like I hope that it comes back quickly, because I think the dungeons, doing the solo dungeons, doing solo flawless dungeons, those are the things that let us stand apart from other Guardians. Getting those emblems, titles. There should be a title for doing solo stuff. I'd love to see a title going back to that. Give us a title that's literally like, you must do all solo flawless dungeons, and like level up that title.
That would be amazing.
That'd be awesome.
None of the dungeons are going away, right? So it's Streaming City, Moon, and this. So this is the only dungeon that's going away.
Yeah, this is the only one that's going away temporarily, because Shadow Throne is still in, because all the Forsaken content is still relevant, and that raid and stuff is still relevant.
So I think for me going into it, like I knew that I was not like, I just from the rip, I wanted to just like go in alone. I don't know why I had that impression, but I saw in the triumphs like solo flawless, and that's the only way you get the emblem. Why do I want anyone else to come with me on this? Yeah. So I threw myself at the first boss for like hours, and I realized I'm really not that great at PvE. That's fine. It's something that I'm working on, you know.
Yeah, that's the
It's
thing is you get time to work on that. You get to do that.
but it never felt like out of reach. It never felt unfair, which I really liked. And then also watching through the dungeon multiple times since, just through various guides and live streams. Like, I love the look and feel of Prophecy, even down to like the trailer for the dungeon that dropped in the reveal stream, like the whole synthwave neon,
Loved it.
whatever, like
Loved it.
the fact that I can feel like I'm playing Hotline Miami in Destiny while hunting down the Nine, which have always been this like really enigmatic, like antimatter race. And like, are they the good guys? Are they the bad guys? Answering that question has been like just super, super like pertinent to like my interests in the game's lore. Do we have an answer? Absolutely not. This is not. This is kind of a spoiler because there's like a bunch of different dialogue options at the end for the end boss. But you know, at one point the Drifter's like, "You posed the Nine a question and they answered," and Eris is like, "Well, what did they say?" And he's like, "Light and darkness, they're the same thing, basically." There's no. Are they? They're just motes in the dungeon. Like, I don't, the answers that we got are like vague, and you know, obviously going through that dungeon and listening to all the little dialogue drops and lore bits, like they're prophesizing things that are actually about to happen in Beyond Light, which I think when they sort of take prophecy away, they'll probably change that up because it's already happened. That's at least some of the rumors that are going around on about why they're taking away prophecy. And like, that would be cool if this dungeon was just continuously updated with little lore hints, maybe like different ways to like complete different bosses. That'd be cool. Do I expect that to happen? Probably not. But yeah, prophecy is great.
I expect it to go away probably just because they want to limit the amount of things that you can do to level up when the new expansion drops.
Ooh,
And they
that's a
don't
good
want
point.
to go into the raid over leveled, and that's probably why they're going to turn it on once the raid's been completed a number of times, to where there's an opportunity for that to kind of things to go back to normal and give the raid dungeon back. I think it's just the way, personally, the way I look at it is it's probably just got to do with the way that they code the leveling structure.
Right. I also wonder if there's any problem with adding stasis into the game as an element, with specifically that dungeon as mechanics. That could also be a reason why it's going to be going away for a little bit. Yeah. And while we're talking about the dungeon, let's launch into our discussion on exploits. Welcome to Exploits Corner. The dungeon's final checkpoint has it was patched yesterday, I believe, but people were loading into just literally the moment where you enter the dungeon. You enter the dungeon's final room. You see the emissary of the Nine's giant blue face, and then a chest pops up, and you get your pinnacle and your inventory, and some loot drops in on your character. Yeah, people were farming the crap out of that for a while and getting really good rolls on one piece of gear over and over again.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you're not really getting much of a variety of it. I think it certainly makes sense. That was seeing that exploit done. It was really a weird way to checkpoint the dungeon. I've never really seen them do anything like that. Generally, as soon as the boss drops is when your encounter happens. But then again, going back to, I remember the first week of the Taken King when everybody was farming. There was a mission that you can do. It was kind of like, it was like a story mission, I think, but it was a precursor to a lost sector, really. You can kill yourself with a rocket as you finished off this one captain boss. And as you would kill yourself, he had a high chance of dropping an exotic. So you would die. It was a darkness zone, so you'd wipe. And you just keep fighting that boss over and over again, killing yourself with a rocket. So the loot would drop as the boss's health ticks to 0, but you would also die, and that would take precedent over it. So you would just go back in, and there's just piles of exotic engrams there in the room. Because that's when the reason for that is because you can prop. That was like the coins of the 9 or whatever they were to increase the chances of bosses.
Oh yeah,
there's
kind of
always
missed that.
like fun. Like there's always been some weird like shenanigans with with like loot and things too. I feel similarly about our next topic on this too is just exploits, AFK farming.
Before we move on, though, I think what's interesting is so Fallout dropped a video today using the same method. So like this sort of checkpoint passing, because you could pass this checkpoint on to another player, really wasn't used before this exploit. Like
different,
leaving the party as you load in, like that's new. And there's like you can tell that it's not really something you can patch out because they just had to disable that checkpoint. Like they have to reapproach the problem. So Fallout dropped a video where you can very easily farm the 2 chests in Last Wish with a bunch of different characters, just passing the checkpoint between characters and just skipping the wish wall, except for like using it once or maybe twice to get those wishes. It's also like it's really hard on hunters to grab one of those chests because they patched sword, the Worldline 0 exotic sword jump. So this makes it easier for you to grab that second chest for a third time on your third character, which is super interesting. But it has contributed to a larger discussion on exploits that has taken place, especially in our clan, about AFK forge farming and using these exploits in general.
I'm going to pose the question to you first. How do you feel about exploits at large in Destiny, and how do they affect your gameplay?
Okay, so in Destiny specifically, for gearing, I am a guy who has literally sat in the loot cave for hours. Like working in esports has afforded me a very specific advantage in that I've always had access to gaming consoles while I'm at work. Working from home, that's now not very different. But I remember back in the days of D1 in the loot cave, I'd bring in my own controllers. I didn't want to mess up the controllers at work. I'd go in our studio when we weren't using the shows, boot up the PlayStation or the Xbox, sit in the Cosmodrome, just rubber band the sticks together and put my controller so that the trigger was always pulled, so I wasn't AFKing in front of the loot cave, and I would come back and there's all the stuff. So that's been in Destiny from the jump.
Yep.
And it's part of the culture. Finding these exploits is part of the culture. It's part of the cat and mouse game between the community and the developer, and I love it. AFK Forge farming itself it goes way back. There's a huge history of farming up materials. You know, when Shadowkeep dropped, that's what we were doing. Like we were just loading forges and dying to get legendary shards so that we had all these materials to infuse stuff up because we weren't close to like 1,000 or whatever the light level was then. Yeah. Now it's way more egregious because it's not just AFKing and getting materials. It's AFKing and getting something that leads directly to a powerful drop and eliminating the entire light level process of the season. And I understand that that's why people are really upset about it. However, if you've played the game like at all, the way you level up through the seasons has not changed. You're consistently doing the same things. It's like, have I done my weekly Crucible? Have I done my weekly Strikes? Have I done my weekly Gambit? Flashpoint? All the things. Just go down the list until you hit the soft cap or the hard cap with powerfuls and pinnacles. At this point, almost everyone in the game's user base has demonstrated that they can do that. I'm not upset if they skip that at all because it doesn't have anything to do with like how good you are at the game. It literally is just like how much time you've sunk into it.
Yep. My thought on the matter is if there's an ATM that's broken and it's shooting money out, it's making money rain. That doesn't mean you stop going to work, right? Right. That doesn't. Like if you're just like, cool, I'm going to put this money back in. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to do whatever. My thought process on the whole farming thing is, as long as you're not actually hurting another player by what you're doing, then take the, and Bungie has even said it too. They're like, if our mistake is your gain, just do it. We're going to patch it at a certain point. Go and do it. If anything, for me, farming, I hit level 20, which was the soft cap in D1. I hit level 20 the first time. I was running a story in the Cosmodrome. I didn't know what was going on. I walked out. I came through the part, and there was a bunch of people standing on the rocks shooting into the loot cave. I discovered the loot cave organically through the game. People were messaging me going, "Hey, don't go past that rock. Stand back here." And then I was watching as we all shot acolytes in this cave. And
4 hours.
loot came out, and I was just like, "This is great. It's great. It's stupid.
It's
simple.
free real estate.
Free real estate, dude. For me, that only makes me play the game more because I'm just like, well, there's an exploit. Let me exploit it. Let me get my extra loot, and then I'll go and do all the other stuff that I was planning to do. In terms of the leveling, here is the hard part about the way that Destiny's level system works, and this is, I know we're getting close to our time, and this is worthy of its own podcast. Number-based levels tied to RNG is never a good system. We've dealt with it in Destiny for years because it works. It's fine. We know our way around it. We know how to get what we want out of it. It goes back to the ethics. I remember seeing arguments on forums where whether it's ethical or not to have multiple characters of the same class so that you can just boop, port the gear over, jump, wear that armor, then do all of your next levels of raids, nightfalls, whatever, get a new set, have your third of the same class that you like playing. Here, wear this even higher leveled set, and now you're going to go through this, and now you're going to raid on that character. And then you're going to go through and raid on all three characters because the raid loot that you get on that furthest out character, now it's going to trickle back to your other characters. You're going to do the same thing. It's the same level of exploiting, which honestly, if anything, has basically said to Bungie, hey, this leveling system's kind of busted and kind of tedious and kind of like not necessarily the fun part of the game. When you get a level that like you hit like the threshold, it's not fun. It's just a relief that you're like, now I get to play the game. Now I get to take it easy, do the activities that I want. I'm ready to raid. Everything's good. And even like this, there's proof because I've gone through it with from clanmates to randos on LFG. Just having a light level does not mean you're going to perform well in a raid or in a game.
Or
activity.
having gear.
Doesn't
remember back in the day, must have Gallarhorn and Icebreaker.
Gallarhorn must have 700 credit score. Yeah, like I remember like all that stuff. Like it was just like a way to lock people out. That's never what it's been about. I think that the game still deserves an XP system because it would better benefit. Like the problem that I have with this is that even if you take away any of the exploits, you can have two players that are spending the exact same amount of hours playing Destiny that will come out with it based on their knowledge of how to essentially exploit the leveling system. They'll come out with it of two different levels of light of their power.
Right.
If they know how to like game the system. I don't have an issue with any of this at all. I don't think it takes away any of the credibility. I don't think it takes away any of the work that anyone has done if they leveled the quote unquote legit way. At the end of the day, for me personally, it makes me play more because I'll just spend the time that I would have gotten tired out with doing Gambit or Strikes. I'll spend that time in the Crucible, a mode that I enjoy, or I'll do more raids each week, or I've run way more dungeons, the different dungeons. So I ultimately like it's better to let the player have fun doing what they want to do as opposed to forcing them to run the gamut of you need to do Gambit, but you need to not do the Pinnacle Gambit. You need to do the bounties first and then the powerful and then the Pinnacle. And that's the optimal order that you want to do it. But you also want to stop playing Gambit. So you don't want to load up too much on Gambit because you don't want to finish this over that because you want to go do Strikes. It's a system that we're used to, but it's not a good system in any way.
Yeah.
I think it's like that door in your house that you're like, this thing doesn't lock, but if you kind of jimmy it this way and you can go like you can get in through the door and it works, or you can prop this window up this way. It's janky. It's not good. It's just we're used to it.
I think if I'm looking at like experiences that I've had with other MMOs and like also sort of how they've tried to change this with the artifact and having functionality tied to like mods in there versus like functionality and like power coming from just your light level. One thing that could sort of help with this is like no one gives a shit about gear level past a certain point. Yes, it's sort of a necessity as an MMO. Like you see it in WoW as well. There's always gear squishes. There's always like a sense of just base. Like I need to get like more. I need to get stronger. And that's split up amongst an EXP gain in some MMOs as well as a gear grind. That's fine. However, attached to that gear grind are stats, and stats in our game in Destiny, like they affect your just the respawn of your abilities. But if we had things like set bonuses that like imagine if you had and they experimented with this in Gambit Prime and the set bonuses for Gambit, but if you do that in PvE where you're just like, all right, if I have both of like the Dreaming City pieces, if I have two of those, that's gonna give me overload on my melee or something like that, or like add these different fun elements that give power through functionality and not power through numbers.
Hard agree.
You're creating it goes back to the reward system, but you're also creating like a fun and deep system for people to grind out like things. Like you're rewarding the AFK farm still, but you're also not making it so that like there's only one pathway for them to grind out. So what if they get to the top like item level, they still don't have the functionality that they need to be like a top tier PvE player.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head there, is that the one and only end all be all has been light level, and it's really ultimately also not mattered in terms of like player skill too, right?
Yeah.
I've run through raids of people that are higher level that have struggled with more stuff just because, and not saying put any blame. It's just that like I've run more raids. I've run the gamut a little bit more of the stuff. I have a different understanding of the game sense and stuff. So like it's ultimately, it doesn't really matter. And that's exactly why I don't have a problem with exploiting a farm. As long as you're not DDoSing somebody, like that's obviously absurdly awful, and they should be punished for doing that. If it's a light level thing, like if you're like, hey, meet me in the forge queue under 700 light level, we're all doing the same thing, and everybody's just like, okay, cool, let's do it. Because it's not possible. You couldn't even encounter a player at that light level, even if it was a new player coming in. They wouldn't be able to complete the activity. So you're all kind of like, hey, we're all wearing low level gear. All right, let's do it. And if you're handing off checkpoints in a dungeon farm, you're doing it with friends. You're doing it with people that you're talking to and you're communicating with. I don't have an issue with that at all.
Yeah.
DDoSing the game and manipulating something like trials for awards, absolutely ban the shit out of them. Because that's an ethical thing that you're doing this to another person. But if you're like, that's the same way the reason the analogy was for an ATM. If an ATM is shooting money, you're still going to pick up that money and go to work, right?
Yeah.
You're still going to go to work. You're still going to go do your activities. You're not going to be like, woo, all right, thanks, logging out of Destiny for the week. Like, no, you're still going to go play. And if anything, you're going to play more of the activities that you want to do.
That's right.
Straight up.
So I think we've got some more notes to get over for the season, but it's 9:00, and I think that we could go forever. So let's jump into clan affairs and wrap things up. So weekly, guys, we're going to talk about the Caffeinds clan and our superstar members, and we're going to start something called Member of the Week. And our inaugural Member of the Week is, drumroll please,
Sean Bartley. Dude is doing streams for the rest of this month, raising money for the St. Jude's charity. A big charity that a lot of the Destiny community has kind of rallied around. We've had a great partnership. In his first stream, he had almost $400 raised. He's going to be streaming each week, doing this for the cause. You can find him at twitch.tv/Sean Bartley. We'll have a link in the description when we put this up on YouTube and the other channels where you can follow us. The other call out is my co-host here of WillProduces, who is now #SmoothWill. Will used to have a beard and like John Wick hair, and like a samurai top knot. That why don't you roll the clip? Why don't you show?
We're gonna talk over it a little bit. Here it is.
Yeah, let's hit that. Will raised an absurd amount of money. What was your end total?
It was just over 15,000. This is me breaking the scissors as I cut off my man bun.
Yeah. It's gone. It's gone. Seeing you with just the mustache was funny enough. I kept logging in to see like where you were at throughout the day. And I was like, oh God, he has no beard. Oh God, he has a mustache. Oh God, the mustache is gone. And then I was like, I was really like, it was perfect too because I had just finished cooking. I pulled up your stream and you were literally doing this. Like this was the clip.
Yeah, you can see you in chat. Okay, well, I clicked back at a good time. Yeah, I've been taking a hair supplement, and it definitely made my hair stronger. You can hear Dan in there. That was pretty traumatic, actually. Not gonna lie, it was way worse than shaving my head later in the day. So yeah, we raised over $15,000 for the National Police Accountability Project, which is a offshoot of the National Lawyers Guild. And what they do is they help people who are in need of representation. They help connect people to lawyers in cases of police brutality, and they help try and pass legislation that try and stop police brutality, or at least punish those that do commit such an act. Obviously, things are not good in the world right now. I feel like one of the best things about the Caffeinds clan and the community we have is that we have a lot of people who are very conscious of the world outside themselves and want to give back. Queen and Sean, the way they talk about St. Jude's and how it affected their lives, and the way they give back to it is so admirable. And I really look up to both of them for that. So that Sean's fundraiser is ongoing for the whole month. So please go ahead, drop by twitch.tv/Sean Bartley as he's streaming, donate to St. Jude's, and let's save the kids.
Let's do it.
Yes. If you are still here and you've made it to the end of our inaugural 2-hour-long podcast, first of all, thank you so much. This is way longer than it'll probably go in the future. We had to get through a huge content drop in the reveal. But yeah, dude, thank you all for watching. If you haven't followed, click that follow button right now. Thanks again to Uncle Drifter's Umbral Engrams, and Gary's Almighty Sunset Proof shaders. I literally wrote that. Why did I forget it?
How does it work? Like, how does it prevent?
The shader is literally just all black, like pure black.
It's like a camo.
But also, it's made of the Almighty, which no longer exists. And Gary is Gaul. Cool. Explaining a joke is the best way to make it even more funny. But also, twitter.com/caffeinsgg. That's CAFFEINDS. GG. We have an Instagram as well to follow, and the YouTube shortly will come with that. We're going to drop the VOD of this show up there. We are going to try and get the audio of this up onto Spotify, so keep on the lookout on social media to see when that comes. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll be here every Thursday at 7 p.m.
Yes. And keep a lookout too. We're going to also feature, you're going to see more than just our faces. We're going to feature as many of our clanmates that are willing to participate in chat. The ultimate goal of that too, and the reason that the podcast is based on the name of our clan, is that we've got a great community of people from all different experience levels, walks of life, that get together over Destiny. And we've been doing it for years now, and we want to just spread the word and just showcase all of the cool talents and stuff that we have within our members. So whenever you've got time, hit us up, drop a link, drop a like, follow, and check our stuff out. We're going to also be always promoting all of our content creators through a variety of medias on the social channels as well. So keep a lookout for that. And thank you guys again for watching us.
And big glitter cat energy.
Big glitter cat energy. See you guys. Out.
All right.